about an hour, sometimes longer, and try to accomplish one project by the end of the week. So there will be multiple parts of the tutorials. At the end of my live, I upload the live to YouTube, so you can go back and watch the tutorial at your own pace. My YouTube channel is at NiftyKnotz, and the playlist / podcast is NiftyKnotz Talk, where you can find all of my previous lives and tutorials. This week we are working on crochet hook books. So if we are crocheting a book, we can slip our crochet hooks into it. It is a pattern that's no longer available. So like most of my tutorials, I have to freehand it and kind of figuratively deconstruct it to put it back together. The first part of the tutorial showed how to make the pockets. The second part of the tutorial showed how to modify the pockets to accommodate the bigger clover hooks. The second part of the tutorial also included how to do the spine of the book and finish down the second side of the book with the pockets. First side of the book, spine of the book, and the second set of the pockets. Today we are going to work on the outside of the book, and I did manage to figure out the stitch, which is a very simple stitch. Cindy, good morning. Good morning. Whoever it was that told me I was in and out again, I'm sorry. I don't know, I can't find the comment. Thank you for everybody that's joining. I'm going to jump right into this. So I made kind of a smaller version of the inside of the book, and I'm going to work on the pockets, or the outside for the book. So this is the inside of our book with our pockets. And you can see this is the first pocket that we started with that I kind of took directly from the pattern. This was the second pocket that I made that kind of played with some longer stitches, a treble stitch to make the pockets, and I didn't really care for it. And then for the other pockets that I made, I figured out how I could put the stitch pattern together so that it would accommodate a clover hook or a bigger hook. I also explained in those tutorials how you could keep increasing if you had bigger hooks to make a bigger pocket, but still keeping the back part of the book totally flat, and the inside of the book is the bulk of the pockets. So if you can see that the bulk of your pockets all are on the inside of the book, and the back of the book is going to be flat. I also go through how you could just do this simply as one long piece and use it to just roll up and tie. So you could just roll your hooks together and tie them. I also explained how you could make this a lot longer and make the pockets longer, so that if you wanted to accommodate knitting needles, which are significantly longer, you could adapt that to it. And this one, the way it's constructed and put together, once the back is done and stitched on, it actually makes these two pockets in between the front and the back for scissors, notebooks, whatever you want to stick in there. And it does have a loop on it, but of course, true to my nature, I finished the project and never put the button on it. So, which you like, thank you. So, let's jump into doing the cover for our book. So the cover for our book is going to be the same amount of stitches, and I know my yarn choices are a little bit odd here, but I want you guys to be able to see the stitches. I'm not really worried about the colors. I'm more worried about whether you can see the stitches and what I'm doing. I did start one here to try to figure out what I was doing, and that is the stitch. And it is basically just a crossed double stitch. And again, my tutorials are based upon the principle that if you can hold your yarn and you can hold your hook and you can yarn over and pull through a loop, you can do any of the stitches that I'm showing you, and I will go through them. To make the cover of our book, and if the first tutorial I said grab a notebook so that you can write down what you do, because when you're going to freehand things you want to make sure that you remember what you did so that if you want to do it again you can. Just jot down notes. So I'm going to use, my starting chain is going to be the same amount of stitches I used for the starting chain for the inside of my book. So I used 30 for mine. So I'm going to go ahead and chain 30, which is just simply, you know, a chain stitch. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. So I have my 30 stitches, the same as the 30 stitches that I started with for the inside pocket part of the book. And again, just like the inside pocket part of the book, I'm going to start with a base row of single crochets. So I want 30 single crochets across. So I'm going to chain 1 to give me the height for the row. And then I'm going to just simply do my single crochets all the way across, which is insert your hook into your stitch, yarn over, pull your hook through your stitch, yarn over, and pull it through 2 stitches. Insert your hook through your stitch, yarn over, pull it through your stitch, yarn over, and pull it through 2. These are US standard crochet terms. So I'm going to go ahead and keep doing my single crochet all the way across till I have my 30 stitches. I know I really shouldn't say anything, but it's nice and quiet here this morning. I'm sure on cue Sir Charles will come out and start huffing at me. Although he has been much better since I've stopped giving him so much of his treat. I'm not even going to say the word because he'll hear it and come running. Alright, I'm almost there. So I have my base row of single crochet. My 30 stitches. And to match my 30 stitches across. I'm getting all tangled here. Alright, so now to begin the pattern, that single crochet is always going to be in between our pattern stitch. So the next row is going to be a pattern stitch, and then the next row is going to be a single crochet. And the combination of this single crochet and the pattern stitch is going to give you the height equal to one of the double crochets or one of the pocket rows. So you're going to do the same amount of sequences of the single crochet and pattern stitch is you are going to have pockets. So I have 4 pockets, so I'm going to repeat my single crochet in this next row 4 times so that I have that repetition, same repetition. So this is going to start with a double crochet, and I'm going to chain 3 for my double crochet because I chain tight. If you want to crochet 2 for your double crochet, because of your tension to make your height, that's absolutely fine. Whatever works. Good morning, Samantha. Good morning, Cindy. Good morning, Janie. Good morning, everybody that's here watching. Who is here watching? Deidre, Linda, Sapphire, Rara. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so when I turned to start on my pattern stitch, I did my chain 3. Now you can do one of 2 things. You can just use this as height and put your first double crochet in the first stitch, but if you do that, you need to be consistent. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to count my chain 3 as my first stitch, so I'm just going to skip that because that's my first stitch. I'm counting my chain 3 as that first stitch, so I'm not even going to include that. It's already stitched as far as I'm concerned because of the chain 3. Then I'm going to skip the next stitch, and in the next stitch I'm going to double crochet, which is my yarn over through that stitch, grab my yarn and pull up my loop, yarn over through my 2 stitches, and yarn over through my 2 stitches. Now this is the row that starts to make the pattern. So now I am going to let you see it from the back, and I will show you from the front, because all you're going to do is another double crochet, but you're going to do it in the stitch that you skipped. So you're going to yarn over, and again, you're looking at it from behind, so I'm going to go behind my stitch that I just made into the stitch that I skipped. So I went behind and into the stitch that I just skipped. I'll show you from the front next. And then I'm going to do the same double crochet, yarn over and pull it through my stitch, yarn over, pull it through 2 loops, and yarn over and pull it through 2 loops. It gives me an X. And that is all this is an X. So it gives me an X with 1 double crochet on the front, going one way, and the other double crochet on the back going the other way. So from the front, you would do this stitch. I'm going to try my best here without having to flip my camera. So from the front, you would do this stitch. You would skip the next stitch, double crochet into the next stitch. So I'm going to skip 1. I'm going to skip 1, and I'm going to go into my next one, and I'm going to do my double crochet. So you can see I've skipped 1 stitch and I've done my double crochet. You're looking at it from the right side now. I'm going to then take my hook, and again I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to go, let's see, this might be a better way if I can get you guys to see it. If I can get it to focus. I'm not real sure if I can get it to focus. Hold on, let me flip my camera and see if I can. Or just flip my body. Maybe if I flip my body, I can show you better. Okay, so on the right side there, you've got your first stitch. This is horrible. You've got your first stitch, and you've got your stitch that's skipped. in between them. Should have worn a light colored shirt today. Should have picked a different color yarn. I will show this to you again. So to do the next stitch, you're going to yarn over. You're going to go behind the stitch that you just made into the stitch that you skipped. And then you're going to work your double crochet from behind. So it gives you another X. And I am going to flip my camera so you can see that a little bit better. So just give me 1 second here. Flip my camera. Did it flip? Yes, it flipped. Okay, give me 1 second to turn everything around here, because I can't really do it and not see. Okay. This might work a little bit better. Alright, so we are working. We are going to skip our stitch. So this is the stitch we just worked into. This is the next stitch. We're going to skip it. This is the next stitch. We're going to yarn over into that stitch. Yarn over and through two, and through two. Whoops, made a mess of that one. And finish our double crochet. Then we're going to yarn over, go behind the stitch that we just made into the stitch that we skipped, and then finish our double crochet. And I'll show that again. It is easier to show the stitches this way. So that's the stitch we just worked into. That's the stitch we're going to skip. This is the stitch we're going to do our double crochet into. So skip one, do our double crochet. Skip one, do our double crochet. That's the first part of the X. You want to put the second double crochet into the stitch in the middle that you skipped. So you're going to yarn over. You're going to go from the back into the stitch that we skipped. Pull through your loop once, through your stitch once, pull through your two loops, and pull it through your two loops. Good view, got it. Okay, I'm going to show it one more time. So this is the stitch we just made into this stitch. We're going to skip the next one. We're going to double crochet into that next one, the one after the skip stitch. And then again, we're going to yarn over. We're going to go from behind the stitch into the stitch that we skipped in the middle, pull up our loop, and finish our double crochet. And it just makes an X. You can see from the front and from the back. Alright. Oh, thank you for the gifts. Alright, if everybody got that, I'm going to flip my camera back around here. Whoops. Maybe. Alrighty. So, I'm sure that was a much better view to see that stitch. Oh, good. Oh, thank you, Lacey. I couldn't really tell who was, from that view there, who was jumping in and who wasn't. Alrighty. So, I'm going to have to do that more often. I'm going to just continue across the same way. Skip my stitch, double crochet, yarn over into the skip stitch in the middle, do my double crochet, have another X. Thank you very much. Our hanging plant. I have everything done except the plant itself. You're having a hard time making the leaves. Leaves aren't too bad. Maybe I'll do a short video on that after this. So I'm just going to finish across, and I have multiples of 2 here, which is what you need. So the first stitch is my double crochet, and if I'm using multiples of 2, my last stitch will then be a double crochet. So I will have the X's all the way across, and then I will have the 1 double crochet that I started with, the 1 double crochet that I ended with. So let me, what kind of plant are you trying to make? TikTok keeps asking me to make series, and I've been thinking about it. But then at the same time, I would feel guilty for asking people to buy my series. I'm just taking some notes here. Viney with leaves and flowers. Her words, not mine. Okay, after I do this live and take a break, maybe I'll do for my short today for TikTok, I will do a tutorial on a leaf that you could use for a viney flowery plant. That should be simple enough. And I have your name there so I can tag you in the video, or I can send it to you so that you make sure you get it. So I'm just working across, doing my X's. It's hard sometimes coming up with new content, especially when, like, I'm obsessed with making one thing, which are my granny totes. So when I'm making the same thing over and over, I have to get creative about coming up with a new video for the day. But I should be able to do like a little leaf tutorial. So I'm almost at the end. I have 3 stitches left at the end. So I'm going to put the first part of my X, put the first part of my X here, so I'm going to skip my stitch, put the first part of the X here, work behind the stitch, put the second part of the X here, the second double crochet here, and then I am just simply going to double crochet in the last one to end my row. Thank you guys so much for all the likes. Thank you for all the gifts. I do appreciate it. So, I have the first set of my pattern stitch. So that's going to be 1. So for every pocket you have, you're going to do that same repeat. So I'm now going to turn and chain 1, and I'm just going to single crochet all the way across. And the reason why, even though you're using double crochet for the pocket rows, like each pocket row is the equivalent of 1 row of double crochets, with the pocket made as short rows on top of it. And even though you're just doing double crochets with this one, when you pull your double crochets to the side like that to make the X, you're actually decreasing the height of the stitch because you're making it diagonal. So if you look at the height of my hand on the screen, the height of my hand, I can make it so that it takes up the whole screen. But if I tilt my hand, you can see that it's considerably smaller. Does that make sense? So if I have my hand like this and it takes up the whole screen, if I tilt my hand, you can see the space at the top here where I've made my stitch shorter. So to compensate for that X from those double crochets, to make it the same height as a regular double crochet, thus we're going to use the base row of our single crochet in between each one. And that gives us the same, should give us the same height as our double crochet for our pockets that we made. So I'm going to just, again, chain one and work my 30 single crochets all the way across. And this is a good time that if you think you made a mistake and you miscounted, thanks. If you think you made a mistake and you miscounted, this is a good row that you could like fudge it and like decrease the stitch if you needed to. So again, I'm just working my single crochets all the way across in each stitch till I have my 30 stitches all the way across again. And I have 4 sets of pockets. I made my book a little bit narrower just so I could get things accomplished. So I'm going to go ahead and after this row I am going to keep going and do my 4 sets of this so I can show you how we're going to join it to the spine. Because after we do our 4 sets of this, we're actually going to crochet this right onto the spine of the book. So now you have your, and it looks a lot different when you, it looks much more decorative and pretty when you're actually looking at the real thing and not on the screen. But so now you have your row of your base row of single crochet, you have your row of your pattern stitches, and then you have your next base row. How do I get it in an angle? You mean to do the double crochets, to do the X's? Yes, okay. So I actually, so if you go back to my YouTube channel a little bit later, I will have this whole thing uploaded where I did it like really close so that you could see a really good explanation of it. But I'm not going to flip my camera that way right now. I'm just kind of going to show you. But the way I make the X is you've double crocheted in this stitch and you're looking at it from the back, which is fine. You're going to skip the next stitch and you're going to double crochet in that second stitch. So you're going to make your double crochet in that second stitch, and your double crochet is your yarn over through your stitch. Your double crochet would be your yarn over, so skipping the next stitch, I'm going to double crochet into that stitch, which would be your yarn over, insert your hook through your stitch, yarn over, pull up your loop. You have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. Thank you, Becca. And then you're going to yarn over and you're going to go behind your stitch. So I'm going behind my stitch. I'm going to come through the space and I'm going to go in from front to back the stitch that we skipped. And then I'm going to yarn over and pull through the stitch, and I'm going to make that second double crochet of the X. So I have my 3 loops for my double crochet through my 2 and through my 2. So you can see I've done, I hope you can see, I've done 1 stitch going this way and then I've done my second double crochet in the back going the opposite direction into the skipped space. So if this is the right side, I did the first, I skipped a stitch and did the first double crochet in the second stitch, and then working behind my stitch through the space, I inserted my hook back into the skipped stitch and then did my second double crochet. So it gives me one double crochet this way and one double crochet going the other way. So that's how I get that X. So I'm just going to repeat that all the way across. Skip a stitch, double crochet into the next stitch, double crochet into the skip stitch. And you kind of have to go in the back. Yeah, it is easy enough. You kind of have to go in the back because you're holding your yarn in the back. Because when you insert your hook, your yarn's in the back, and your hook is in. Yeah, the hook part of your hook is in the back. So when you do that second double crochet, you kind of really have to go behind the first double crochet. But then you have to go from front to back to pick up the skip stitch. So follow where your yarn is. So you go behind the stitch, but you still want to pick up the skip stitch from front to back because that's how you're crocheting. So again, I'm going to skip my stitch, double crochet into my next stitch, yarn over, double crochet into my skip stitch. Am I saying those words right? I'm going to skip a stitch, double crochet into the next stitch. My hair all over the place. I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to double crochet into the skipped stitch. Yes. It's like a tongue twister, so I want to make sure I'm saying it right. It is. It looks nice, it's simple, and it's quick. Now you could actually, if you wanted to, take any stitch pattern that worked in multiples of 2 and work the cover of the book the same way until it was the same, approximately the same height. Just paying attention to the height of your stitches and trying to keep, so if you were going to do single crochets and you were just going to do a solid single crochet stitch for the cover of your book, you know that 2 rows of single crochet is going to equal your 1 row of double crochet. So you would then, if you had 4 rows of pockets, you then know that you have to compensate for that height by doing 2 rows of single crochet for each row of that, for those pockets. You may even want to do 3 as long as you're consistent, or you may not want to measure it at all. You may just want to put it against the book and say, okay, it's the same size. Your project. You can do it however you want to do it. And that's kind of the point of me teaching things free-handed like this, is to show you that it's your project. You can, again, if you can hold your yarn and hold your hook and yarn over and pull up your loop, it's just about sequencing and personal taste. You know, people make some of these like gowns and garments and things like that, and they look absolutely beautiful, but if you actually take the time to look at it and take it apart, it's just the same simple basic movements and stitches. They're just put in different trial and error, just put in different sequences. Alright, so I'm on my row of single crochet. So after my row of X's, I'm going to do my row of single crochet. sit back for a minute, because by the time I sit here and do this for 2 hours, like, my shoulders are killing me. And like, it finally dawned on me, hello, you sit up like that and hold your arms up like that. It's grown from an hour to 2 hours. Again, this is just my base row in between my X's, which is just a row of single crochet. And again, this is a good row to count. If you're off by a stitch or two, if it doesn't look too distorted, you can just add a stitch somewhere or decrease a stitch somewhere. Nobody's going to look at your project and count your stitches. You are going to be the only one that looks at your project and counts your stitches. I mean, unless it's like a huge mistake where you know it's definitely going to be noticeable. So I have 2 rows so far of my pattern. So I'm going to then turn around and do my X's again, and that will give me a 3rd pattern row. But yeah, nobody's going to count your stitches but you. Thank you. And again, it's super simple. It's just 2 double crochets. They're just put in different places in a different sequence. You're still using the same basic movements, and you're still doing the same yarn over and pulling up your loop. You're just putting it together a little bit differently. Thank you. It looks like my tension's tight on this one today too. I need to stop that. I went to line one of my granny bags yesterday and realized that, oh my god, it's like 3 inches shorter than the other ones. Same amount of stitches. I must have been just crazy that week when I did it, because the tension was so tight that it made it 3 inches shorter than the other bags. So of course, once I use my template and I get my lining all put together, I realize that now I need to hem the bottom of my lining because it's too long for my bag. It fit around the circumference of the edge, but it's way too long to put in that bag. Yes, I put a single crochet row in between each pattern row. So you can see, and that kind of adds to the pattern. So you can see I have a single crochet, and then I have my row of X's, and then I have another row of single crochet, and another row of X's, and then another row of single crochet, and now I'm working on another row of X's. So yes, I do put a row of single crochet in between each one of those rows of X's. Why was my brain sending things out of my mouth that were wrong? Because I'm not paying attention. I'm sure it happens often. Often enough. You can do the same X pattern with you can do the same X pattern with like a treble crochet if you were doing like maybe, for example, the shrug that we did back here, that's back there on my mannequin, that is just all treble crochets and chains. You could actually do that X pattern for that shrug and make it out of trebles to make it bigger. You can you know, just like you said, trial and error. You just kind of have to, I call it doodling. You just kind of have to doodle. My husband will walk in and say, "What are you making today?" I'm like, I don't know, I'm just doodling. I'm trying to see, you know, what I can do, how I can put things together. And then, you know, sometimes that goes somewhere, and sometimes I just rip it all out and roll it into a ball. Which is fine, because when I want things to look like I want them to look, then I don't mind taking the time to rip something out and do something. So I finished my row of X's. I'm going to turn around and do my row of single crochet. My row of single crochet, did I say round? My brain's not on the same page as my body today. And it's just one single crochet in each stitch all the way across. Alright, I have 3 sequences of my pattern. 1, 2, 3. You're not creative. Sure you are. We all have some creativity in us. It's just comes out in different ways. If you can cook and make recipes and throw things together, that's being creative. If you can draw things, that's creative. If you can organize things, that's creative. You know, creativity is more than just art. It's more a state of mind than it is art. Which is why a lot of times which is why a lot of times totally lost my concentration there. A lot of times people will say, like, for example, the art of organization, the art of auto repair, the art of building. You know, even architects have to be creative in some aspect. And a lot of people wouldn't call that art, but it's still creativity. So I'll give you guys a second there. I have one more row to do. One more set of rows to do. Take a breath. Give my brain time to, my brain and my mouth time to get on the same page. Oh, now I understand what you were saying. You're making me want to be for sure. Yeah, you know, when you break those things down to the simple basic principles, it's a lot easier to be creative, because then you realize that it's just, you know, everything has to start somewhere. So it starts with that basic building block. Oh, thank you so much. You're everyone's cheerleader. You're awesome. Thank you so much. But it's true. Everything starts with one single building block, and it's what you put on top of it. And with crocheting, if you know how to do those basic motions, I wouldn't even say stitch. If you can do those basic motions, then you can do a stitch. If you can do a stitch, you can do all kinds of things. I mean, it's just all the same. You know, I've said it before, I probably said it 100 times. It's just, if you can hold your yarn and you can hold your hook and you can yarn over and pull through a loop, That's all crochet is. It's just at that point a matter of creativity and sequencing. Hey Beth, thank you for joining. So I'm going to take one more sip of my coffee and work on my last row so that I can put the spine of this book on. Well, not the spine of the book, but attach the cover of the book to the spine of the book. I like being everybody's cheerleader. We should all be everybody's cheerleader. That's, I don't know. This is the bar. Yeah, it's going to be easier than you think. We all should be everybody's cheerleader. What's the point of like bashing somebody or bringing somebody down because they can do something differently? And as you see with like basic building blocks, it's not a matter of being better. It's just a matter of doing it differently. Like we all do it differently. You guys are sitting here following me. When I picked this book up last week and showed you this book, everybody was like, oh my God, that looks so nice. But now that we've sat and we've torn it apart and we've put it back together, you see that it's just the same thing you guys are all doing already. It's just put together a little bit differently. So, I just don't understand the bashing somebody for a difference in creativity or opinions. Again, my opinion. I gave my husband my opinion yesterday, and he said, that's not true. And I said, there is no true or false to an opinion. It's an opinion. So, just because you don't agree with somebody doesn't mean you have to put them down for it. But anyway, again, my opinion. I'm going to work on the last row of this so I can show you guys how I can attach the front cover. It might be like really wonky here because of my attention, but you'll get the idea. So I'm doing my last row of X's. Almost there. And the last row of X's. Now I'm going to do my one more row single crochet on top of it. So I'll have a single crochet row on the bottom, X, single crochet X, single crochet X, single crochet X. I'm going to do one more row single crochet. When you give your husband your opinion, he thinks you're arguing with him. Don't they all? Build upon your opinion and create a middle ground. Yeah, you have to. Alright, just about done with my last row of single crochet. Alrighty. So now I have my piece there. And you look at that and think, oh my god, look. How'd she do that? Well, that was it. It was just double crochets and single crochets, just put together a little bit differently. So now, and of course it's not the same as my book. Of course I did my book a lot looser, but that's okay. Again, like if you get to this point, see, it probably fits on this side. It would fit on this side if I hadn't like stretched it out so much to try to make it fit. But if you need to put an extra row there because it looks too big or too small, put an extra row there. But I'm going to show you how to attach it first. So I'm going to look at my piece here. Sorry. I'll be making everybody dizzy. And when we did the back of the spine, you remember those two rows that we did, that we left the unworked loops at the top? You can see the unworked loops that we worked at that we left from the spine of the book. This right here is where we're going to attach. So we're going to put our wrong sides together. This is the wrong side, and whichever side you want to be the wrong side of this, I'm going to I think I'm going to put mine like this, together like this. Maybe I should put it together the other way so you can see it. Yeah, I'll put it the other way so you can see it a little bit better. So these are the loops that we skipped. And what you're going to do is you're going to, again, you have 30 stitches for 30 stitches. So when you put your stitches together, get that out of the way, you see you're going to match up a loop to a stitch, and then a loop to a stitch, and a loop to a stitch, and a loop to a stitch, and a loop to a stitch. You're going to match those up, but you're just going to work in the back loops. So whichever way you have it, you're going to work in the back loops and through that first. So we have the second one here because we're going to work a spine on this part too. So you're going to attach the back loops to this loop that's right here, and you're going to work through both of those, and I'll show you in a second. You're going to work through both of those. Now it doesn't matter which way you put this. You can flip it this way and work this way, but you would still want to go through the back loop that's next to this loop. So you would still match it up. There's my loop. There's my loops. So even if you put it on the opposite way, you can see your stitches. You would then just work through that loop and that loop. So whatever loop is closest to your stitch, whichever loop of your stitch is closest to this ridge and these unworked loops, that's the loop that you're going to go through, leaving the front loop on the right side of your cover exposed. But I'm going to work it this way because it'll be easier for you to see. So I'm going to put my fabric together like this, right? And loop for loop, I'm just going to work a single crochet to join it. So I'm going to go, well, let me chain one for my height. All right, so I've got my chain one for my height there. I'm going to go through the back loop, and again, the back loop's going to depend on which side you have next to your, which side you decide to use for your right and left side, right and wrong sides. So I'm just going through the back loop, and then I'm going through the first skipped loop, on the spine of the book, and I'm just going to single crochet. I'm doing this totally backwards. I'm doing it like I'm left-handed. I have myself confused again. Good morning, Crazy Stitches. Okay, so you guys get the idea. The back loop of your fabric. There we go. All right, now I'm working the right way here. So I'm going to go through, since I'm holding it this way, I'm going to go through that skipped loop on the first part of our spine, and then I'm going to go through that top loop on our book. So whatever on the right side of your book is, you're going to leave your loops open. So when I'm working it this way, it actually ends up being my front loop. So when I go through the skip loop on my spine, the skip loop on my spine, and then I'm going to go into the next stitch, and just pick up the loop closest to the spine, which ends up being the front loop, because I totally screwed up that explanation, which, go figure. Should I turn the camera around and show this again? I can do that. Let me do that. It still makes sense? Okay, if it still makes sense, well, maybe I'll turn it around anyway. You're good? Everybody's good? Still makes sense? Anybody want me to turn it around? So again, this is the first part, right? There is the second set of, from the spine of our book, there's the second set of skipped loops. So we're going to work this one to attach it. We're going to work another row or so to make the spine part of the cover of our book, and then we're going to attach it again to these other loops here. So I'm just going to keep working down there and attaching that. Stitch for stitch. almost need a second camera so I can have one that points down towards my stitches and one that points towards me. And yeah, this book is a little bit thick, but I mean, honestly, if you wanted to make it with sport weight yarn so that it wasn't quite as bulky, you see how mashed down mine is? That's just from being underneath other books. This one here doesn't look quite as bulky anymore because it's just been used and used and used. All right, now I'm down to the last stitch. Alrighty, never mind my tension there, never mind my, so that's what I have so far. So I'm working this way around my book. So now I'm going to turn it. I'm going to chain one, and I'm going to single crochet through both loops of just the blue all the way across, and that's going to give me the flat part for my spine around the bulk of the book. It's going to start to anyway. We'll need a couple rows of this. For those of you just jumping, this is what it really looks like when you do your tension right and you got it. This is what it looks like when you're just kind of playing and doodling with it. Still the same stitches, and you'll still get the same effect if you're actually paying attention to how you're doing your tension and putting things together right. Your pockets are bigger on this one. Yes. The first part of the tutorial I did the pockets the way she made them originally, but then I made the pockets a little bit bigger. And again, you can make the pockets as, you know, we went over how to add stitches to make the pockets wider to accommodate the wider hooks. And we also went over how you can, like, how tall you want your pockets to be is up to you as well. But yeah, my pockets on this one are bigger so that I can fit my clover hooks into them. Whereas I can't fit my clover hooks into this one. This one was a pattern that was obviously written like before they started making the hooks with the big handles on them. They're just really for regular size hooks, even though I can get like a bigger hook into it. Like this is a 10 millimeter or an 8 millimeter. I can still slide that into it because it's a wider hook and it's all aluminum, so it slides down in there nicely. But the clover hooks do not slide into the pockets. Yeah, it will make it a little bit bulkier because you're putting bigger hooks in. So whereas you're just putting a regular hook, into the one pocket, you have to make the pocket that much bigger. So you are adding a little bit of bulk because of the size of the handle of the stitches. So that does make it bigger. Just by design, you have to have it a little bit bulkier. Or you can make the whole thing with twice as many stitches in sport weight yarn to make it the same size and have the same accommodation, but it wouldn't be quite as bulky as with the worsted weight. But like I've said before, I like to do this with worsted weight because that's pretty much what just about everybody has in their stash, is some worsted weight yarn somewhere that they can use for a project. god, like I haven't brushed my hair in a year. Alright, so I did my 30 stitches, and again I'm going to kind of fold my book and see what it looks like. So if I look at my book, these are the loops from the skip stitches, and this is where my loops are kind of following for my other for the top part. And since it looks like it pretty much lines up there, like if I fold my book over, it looks like they pretty much line up there. Without like crunching the spine. It looks like they're about the same size with that second row of single crochet. So I'm just going to turn my project to work the other way and do the same thing on the way back. I'm going to go through the skipped loop, oh my god, I did brush my hair this morning, it's just all falling out for some reason. Through the skipped loop, and then I'm going to go through the loop that's closest and just single crochet it together. So I'm going to go through the skipped loop on our spine, and then I'm going to go through, there's my stitch, right? I'm just going through that part of the stitch, the loop that's closest to the spine. So I'm picking up one loop and one loop. So I'm picking up this row of loops here, and this loop that was unworked from that row on the spine, and I'm just doing another single crochet. So I'm going through the skipped loop, I'm going through that loop that's closest to it. I'm trying to do this while I'm like not looking at my piece here. I should look at the piece. There you go. Just through that loop that's next to it. So if that's my stitch, I'm just going through the one loop, and then I'm just doing my single crochet that way and going all the way back. And just all the way down that same way. And again, it should be stitch for stitch because we started with our same chain. So you see, we still have the skip loops, but it makes the ridge that makes it look like it's our spine of our book. Just like we did with this part, we made the ridge to make it look like the spine of our book. We're doing the same thing and just kind of repeating it so that it gives you that like definition there. So I'm just going to keep working all the way down that way. Again, working through the skipped loop and then working through this part of the loop that's right next to it. That's where I'm putting my stitches. And I'm just working all the way down stitch per stitch with a single crochet. In the previous videos, I talked about making the spine of your book a little bit longer or wider. But if you did that, you would have to work in multiples of 2 to do that. If that's what you did, you would just do the same thing for the top cover. You would just add the same amount of rows. You would just add the same amount of rows. So now I've got this side of my cover. I've got the definition and the spine of my book. And I'm just going to probably could have done 2 rows in between that spine. Or 3, yeah, 2 rows, because I did a row that attached it, and then I did a row that attached, and then I did 1 row, and then I could have done 2 rows in there, made it a little bit wider. But honestly, it doesn't matter either way. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I have my 30 stitches. Okay, so after I've done that other row, our unworked stitches there for the back of our book. It brings me to the right side of my book again, or it brings you to the wrong side of your book. It actually doesn't matter because this pattern looks the same from this side and this side. I'm just going to start working down the same way I did for my pattern. I'm going to start with my double crochet and start working my pattern stitch. So just like I did before, I'm just skipping, double crochet in the back. I probably should have added 2 more rows to that spine just to make it a little bit wider. And I'm kind of ignoring the rest of the book, and I'm just working up. I'm kind of ignoring the rest of all of this in here, and I'm just going to continue working straight up with my pattern stitch like I did. So you have your pattern stitch, you have the spine of your book, and then you just continue working your pattern stitch the same way you did. So I'll do my X's, and then I'll do my row of single crochets, and you can see here, you can kind of distinguish where your X's and your single crochets are, so that you can manage to get the same number of rows all the way down, and then just end your row with a single crochet. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 rows of X's. I'll do 4 rows of X's working my way up this way, and when I fold it over, it will be the same way, and then just end with that row of single crochet. And I'm almost at the top here, and it should work out the same because we're still working with just our same amount of stitches that we started with. And the last stitch, I'm going to do my last double crochet, and then I'm going to chain one, and I'm going to turn, and ignoring all this, I'm just going to work my single crochet all the way back. Yeah, that's what I'm doing now. Adding rows to the other side. So now that I started working up, you can see we're just going to continue working up. So if we work up the same amount of stitches that we worked up on this side, it will create the flap that folds down over this part of the book. Yes, I am going to add stitches to this, and I'm going to make it look like that's the way it's supposed to look, so that I can actually show you how I join the book together. Just for some reason my tension was like really, yes, I am going to make it really so that it joins, because your edges of your book should be, the same all the way around by the time. So your cover should be the same length. So if you need to add more rows to get to the spine of the book here, add more rows to get to the spine of the book. I'm probably going to take all of this out, take this part of it out anyway, so that I can add some more rows here so that I can make it a little bit bigger. But I just wanted to show you guys without you guys having to watch me rip it out and redo it all, that's how you would join it. And you can see there where you have the definition in the spine. If you wanted to add 2 more rows to make this a little bit wider around before you joined again, you could do that. It is what it is. I don't mind. Sometimes I don't mind, sometimes I do mind. Sometimes, who knows, you know, it depends on my mood, I guess. I rip so much stuff out that I'm just, I guess, used to it, because I do that much doodling just to play with things. Just is what it is. It's what I'm sitting here doing. I might as well take the time to do it the way I want it instead of just saying, okay, whatever. Now, sometimes I say, okay, whatever. Like, if I'm missing a stitch here, and how I said, you know, you can increase or decrease a stitch, that's one thing. Because, again, nobody's going to count your stitches but you. So if you're missing one stitch, that's one thing. But for something like this, I would say, you know what? I think I would have to draw the limit there, and I would have to say, you really screwed that one up, kid. And I would have to take that apart. Thank you. I enjoy the process, which is why I chose to jump on and like do the process and explain the process while I was going through it. I really appreciate that. But you see, if I stretch this out, it does actually, it's just my tension was like crazy for some reason the one day. But that is what it is. So on that note, I am going to finish this live, and you can keep working up until you have the front part of your book. The front part of your book is the same size. I know, it's ridiculous. Is the same size as the inside of your book. So you would just keep working your rows until this piece of fabric was the same size as this piece of fabric. And then tomorrow, you too. And then tomorrow, we really just have to work around it to join it together. And then we're done. So that'll be tomorrow. And I guess Friday, I don't know, I'll sit and chat or figure out something else to do, or stitch some pockets in there, or do something else with it. Who knows? I haven't gotten that far yet. I'm still on today. Actually, I don't even think I'm on today quite yet, but looks like Sir Charles just figured out it's today too. thank you guys. Jordan, I will work on a short video to show you how to do a leaf. And I will send it to you or tag you in it, one or the other. Upload this to YouTube, so if you want to go back and watch this whole tutorial from the beginning, NiftyKnotz Talk is the name of the playlist / podcast that I just take this live. So all the chatter, everything you've just heard here, I take this live when TikTok is done processing it, and I download it to my computer, and I upload it to my YouTube channel, so that these, you're welcome, Samantha, these lives that I do to teach in the mornings, you can go back and you can watch at your own pace. In the evenings, I usually jump on and crochet, doing either personal projects or whatever that I need to do, and I just kind of like sit here and chatter with everybody. A little bit more personal than my mornings have become. So if you want to jump on later on this evening, who is it? Probably about 7 hours from now. I'll be back on again, and we just kind of sit here and chatter and have fun and goof off. And I work on personal projects. And I try not to beat the dog. Oh. Rub his stinky ears. Alright, on that note, I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their day, and I will see you guys all later. Thank you.